welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Eierstein. Thank you all for joining me today as we continue to go through June's readings from James Allen's Daily Meditations. It's been a fantastic amount of readings today, or this month so far. Really been great. So I'm looking forward to seeing what today's is and where that takes us. So this will be fresh to you and fresh to me, meaning you'll get my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading, because this is the first time I will have read or heard it right on the podcast with y'all. So I'm looking forward to it. So, and just to recap, the last couple of days have been really about how we mold our own worlds, right? How we actually are the ones that shape the world we live in because of the perspective we take and what we do. So I'm sure there's going to be another follow-up to it. And so here we go, June 4th of James Allen's Daily Meditations. The small-minded man and the large-hearted man live in two different worlds, though they be neighbors. Yes, sir. That is so true. The kingdom of heaven is not taken by violence, but he who conforms to its principles receives the password. The ruffian moves in a society of ruffians. The saint is one of an elect brotherhood whose communion is divine music. All men are mirrors, reflecting according to their own surface. All men looking at the world of men and things are looking into a mirror which gives back their own reflection. Each man moves in the limited or expansive circle of his own thoughts, and all outside that circle are non-existent to him. He only knows that he has become. He only knows that which he has become. The narrower the boundary, the more convinced is the man that there is no further limit, no other circle. The lesser cannot contain the greater, and he has no means of apprehending the larger minds. Such knowledge comes only by growth. Men, like schoolboys, find themselves in standards or classes to which their ignorance or knowledge entitles them. That's interesting. I liked this one. It's got a couple of different perspectives in it, or like different concepts. And I just want to check something real quick against the... So there was a misprint in the one that I normally read out of, and when it says the kingdom of heaven is not taken by violence, it has an I in front of violence for some reason, and so I stumbled there, so I apologize for that. But anyway, so the small-minded man and the large-hearted man live in two different worlds, though they be neighbors. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. This is another expansion on this. Your perspective makes the world you live in, because it's the truth. It is the absolute truth that it is your perspective that makes the world you live in. The small-minded man and the large-hearted man live in two different worlds, though they be neighbors. Two people can be going through the exact or at least extremely similar circumstances, and one find joy and happiness and love still, and the other only find misery. Now, that is due to what? Perspective. Understanding. Really, knowledge. Knowledge affords us new perspectives if we're willing to take them That's another thing too. We have got to be willing to take these perspectives as well. So that opening line I really enjoyed. The small-minded man and the large-hearted man live in two different worlds, though they be neighbors. So I'm excited to go through this the body of this one line by line. So here we go. The kingdom of heaven is not taken by violence, but he who conforms to its principles receives the password. You can't force yourself into it. You can't aggressively take over the kingdom of heaven. So you cannot find peace through violence. You cannot find love through violence. You cannot find joy and compassion, kindness. All of these virtues are not able to be sought through violence. He says that right here. But he who conforms to its principles. So when we practice the principles of the program, when we practice the principles, these spiritual principles and spiritual disciplines, the kingdom of, we receive the passcode to the kingdom of heaven right here on earth with us. What a beautiful thing. It's absolutely astounding, right? It seems like such a simple ask. But the reality is, it's not. It's very complicated for many of us because we're selfish and we're self-centered. We can't imagine not living the way we live right now. At least I can't. And that blows my mind. Or I couldn't. And it blew my mind. Today I live wholly different than I used to. And that's something I'm eternally grateful for. So violence will never get you to where you want to be. Only living a spiritual way of life can. I think he goes on with examples here, but the ruffian moves in a society of ruffians. So if the ruffian only sees other ruffians, the saint is one of an elect brotherhood whose communion is divine music. All men are mirrors reflecting according to their own surface. I love that. All men are mirrors reflecting according to their own surface. So we see in men what we would like to, or what we perceive it to be. Or where we actually are, who we actually are, we perceive in the world around us. All men are mirrors, reflecting according to their own surface. All men looking at the world of men and things are looking into a mirror which gives back their own reflection. We see ourselves in everybody we run into. If we see hope for somebody else, if we see possibility, or we see anger, or we see frustration, we see in others what we have in ourselves. And that proves true, even in the minorest of ways, even in the most minute times. I can find myself experiencing this, some might say, spiritual axiom, right? Or spiritual perspective, spiritual perspective, maybe is a better way to call it. But that what I see, especially dominantly around me, is usually where I lie. Right? That's usually right where I'm at or close to it. So if I keep that to mind, it's a healthy check of my spirituality. It's a healthy check of where I stand. It's a healthy check of what I'm doing. And sometimes I don't like that. Sometimes I like to think that, no, I'm just running into a lot of people that are having a bad time, right? But when I step back and take an honest look at things, it's not the case, is it? 9 out of 10 times, that's not the case. It has nothing to do with other people. It has everything to do with me. All right, so this is the second paragraph that, I wanted to explore a little bit more. So I'm glad we get a chance to do that here. So here we go. This is the second paragraph on June 4th. So each man moves in the limited or expansive circle of his own thoughts, and all outside that circle is non-existent to him. So each man moves in the limited or expansive circle of his own thoughts. So what you contain in your head, this is kind of speaking to the ignorance portion, I guess, because the more you know, the more expansive your circles are, right? The more things you've experienced, the more growth you've had, the more expansive your circles and your understandings are. And that's as much as you could. Okay, this is kind of what he's saying, similar to the you don't know what you don't know, right? So you can only see in others what you have experienced and you know to be true for yourself, right? If you see grief, you see that in everybody. If you're feeling grief, you see grief in everybody. If you're feeling anger, you see anger in everybody. If those are the only things you experience, that's what you're going to see everywhere around you. Right? So when you can actually stop and do some learning, do some digging, and give yourself the opportunity to take different perspectives and then go through different experiences, you can see those as well. So you begin to build these lenses to view the world through, and to take a perspective of, to maybe get some more empathy, some compassion, understandings for our fellow man. And so that's what he's kind of talking about here. And the next line, here we go. The next line he says here is, he only knows that which he has become. Right? He only knows that which has become. So if you have only ever been this one person, if you have only ever had this one experience of living, you're going to only see it through that lens. When you have become a spiritual person and you've become somebody that practices the spiritual way of living, which usually entails you have had to become somebody that practices the opposite. There's usually some disciplines that we go through on the other side, or not some disciplines, some behaviors we have before we get to this part of growth in our lives that we have to get rid of. But every experience we've had becomes a part of growth and part of living, and an eye we can view this world through, right? He only knows that which he has become. Now this part, the narrower the boundary, the more convinced is a man that there is no further limit, no other circle. The narrower the boundary. So the less you've experienced, the more sure you are that there is nothing else to experience. The less you experience, the more sure you are, the more convinced you are, is the word he used, that there's no further limit, no other circle. Life is what it is, as you've always experienced it, and the less you've experienced, the more the less variation you've experienced, because most likely you're having the same experience repeatedly, which further entrenches you in that one perspective. That's a very narrow boundary to have, but you become completely convinced of it. It's interesting. The lesser cannot contain the greater. And he has no means of apprehending the larger minds. Such knowledge comes only from growth. So, until you grow and allow yourself to have more experiences and learn and take different perspectives and become teachable, become willing to say there might be something else, there might be something different, right? Until you do that, You have no means of apprehending the larger minds. Such knowledge only comes by growth. So here we go. Men, this is the final line here. Men, like schoolboys, find themselves in standards or classes which their ignorance or knowledge entitles them to. What you know about, you will be surrounded with, right? So what you associate with shows what you know, and that can be very limited perspective. That can, like, if you take, what's the saying? You show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you who you are. Right? It's almost a variation of that. Very, very similar statement here. What is surrounding you in your life? What surrounds you in your life will show you where you're at, right? Standards are classes to which their ignorance and knowledge entitles them. So, you earn where you are, and you've grown into where you are. So, all right. Well, that's another great reading. Putting the responsibility once again on us to grow, on us to proceed further in this world and in this life. And take a larger perspective, or take a teachable, or have a teachable and a teachable willingness. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. But either way, that's where we'll end it tonight. Thank y'all for joining me again. It's always a pleasure to do these. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. If you would like, go ahead and give us a like and a follow on our Facebook page. And we'd love to have you jump on over. And you can give us, you'll get the most recent podcasts and any other new and exciting releases that are coming up from this channel. So thank y'all again for joining me. And until next time, thanks.